So tell me a little bit more. Unpack that situational depression a little bit more. So can you give us an example of what situational depression might look like, or what might cause it?
What might cause it? Oh gosh, well, just about any stress that you can think of in ministry could cause it. Numbers are lower than they normally are. The struggle, like you just mentioned, the struggle to figure out and make the right decision. We go back and forth. There's so many opinions that are out there. And it can cause us to really kind of feel at a place of being helpless and hopeless, so to speak. But situationally, it's not that you necessarily feel that about your entire life, but you can situationally feel like, I just want to quit ministry. We've heard that. I've heard that in people who are so stressed that they just want to throw in the towel and be done. I've even heard comments about individuals who have said, man, when we get through this pandemic, I'm out.
I'm tapping out.
Yeah. So that can be a descriptor. And some of the things that you could feel or experience, certainly worry, excessive worry, trouble sleeping. Always we talk about if your eating habits change, if you're going to the bag of Doritos more frequently than you used to, down in the Diet Cokes more frequently than you used to, or coffee. So there's some of those types of changes that you can identify that are pretty simple, related to just how you feel and what your normal activities are. But I would actually say sleep is probably one of the biggest ones, because you may not realize how much, whether it's depression or anxiety, situationally, how that affects your sleep. And of course, sleep over a long period of time is just going to deplete your body and your system even more, making you more susceptible and vulnerable to that depression and anxiety.
So you're saying it just basically adds on to this. And one of the things that I found, just as a pastor and working with pastors as well, is that for many of us, it's just taboo. You're right, we don't want to be scared by the word depression or anxiety. We preach about this. We reference scripture about be anxious for nothing, fret not thyself, which are all true. But in reality, there are some fretful moments. There are some frightful moments, I guess I would say, and some times when anxiety kicks in. And I think that just adds to that, because, of course, as pastors, right, we're not supposed to be feeling this. We're not supposed to be going through this. So we came in this with this superhero mentality from the beginning, and then over the last 24 months with the pandemic, all those things get added on, and who do you talk to? Where do you go? And so we don't always have those. Either going to go to a counselor, because one of the things that if I go to a counselor, I need to admit, that's the first thing, that I need some help. Or I even acknowledge that something's wrong. I'm not sleeping as much, but maybe it's because of this. Well, maybe it is those things. And I think we have to, I guess the whole idea is that for us, we just want to encourage our ministers that are out there. It's okay. What you're feeling is I want to just say natural, but it's not unique for sure. There are millions of us pastors out there. And I can promise you, we all at some place and somewhere, we're struggling with this. And we just need to know it's safe to acknowledge that and find that comfortable spot, that safe place. And it's good that we have a counseling center, and it's good that we have that network of counselors that you can go to, you can confide in. If you have an elder board, or you have trusted deacons, and lay leaders, you can go to them as well. But sometimes we do need to go to someone that's outside. We do need to have counseling to help us walk through that. That makes sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And what I was thinking of as you were talking is safe space. I mean, that's essentially what you're saying. Yes. You use those words, but maybe it is that there are people in your church that are safe spaces for you, but there might not be. And I think we need to really consider the reality that for many in ministry, that's not the case, that you don't necessarily have someone in your church and in your congregation, on your elder board, your deacons, that you feel like you can trust. That's unfortunate, but it is fairly common in ministry. So it could be reaching out, through a network of pastors, just like you help to maintain and support and encourage. It could be that. It could also be reaching out if you have, one of the things I like to encourage people is, before you were a pastor, you were a person. You're still a person. But before you were a minister, you had, you liked baseball, you liked fishing, you liked whatever it is. So as much as you can, connect with those things and find maybe your safe space is some of those individuals that you can just go hang out with and play some ball with for a little bit, play, whatever it might be, just to kind of hang out. And that can be your safe space, because then you can let your hair down, so to speak, and not have to perform at some certain level, which is going to help that anxiety and help that stress level to decrease some in that space. But if you don't have people that you can connect with, I mean, absolutely, we'd be glad to try to connect you with any networks that we might know of. Right. But if you don't have someone, there is absolutely no shame in reaching out and saying, hey, I just need somebody to talk to. I need somebody, I get this frequently, actually. Ministers who say, I don't have anyone who's really safe, and so I want to reach out to a counselor. And it's not because I think I'm about to go off the deep end. It's because I just need to be able to have someone who's an unbiased sounding board. And that is absolutely 100% okay. Just reaching out for counseling doesn't mean that you are going into some significant mental illness or anything like that, which if you are, we want to be here to help that too.
That's true.
But I think sometimes the stigma is related to the fact that if we admit that something's going on, I mean, it's hard to admit when you need help, particularly in ministry, but we can help to provide some of those safe places for people if they need that.
Yeah, and I think even more so for those who serve in a bivocational capacity, because, as bivocational pastors, you put in at least 40 hours of work at the non-church job, and at least 30 hours plus with the church between midweek services, weekend services, visitations, summer preparation, all that stuff, and it just adds. So it's hard at times for us to find those persons we can network with, but trying to find another bivocational pastor, say, man, I need to borrow some time. Sister, I need to borrow some time from you, because you need that. We are not islands unto ourselves. Right. We do need to find those networks, those folks who will come in and just say, "There's no judgment zone here, but just let me hear your heart," and just kind of work through it, because sometimes we go to the wrong place to try to see where we are. That makes sense, So I think going to those places, and when I say the wrong place, specifically, I mean right now, everyone, a lot of people maybe, are going to social media, or they're going to, well, how many likes did you get? How many followers? So we have a whole nother issue that we're trying to deal with, because I'm watching someone else's program or someone else's ministry online. Now I'm in a comparative mode. So that throws another level of anxiety. And oh, by the way, I'm in a church where we don't really have sophisticated equipment. And so it starts to break down on me. And I'm thinking, how much, so all those, you need that network of just people. That's just to say, did your camera break down? Did your Wi-Fi go out? Because you're in a remote area and your broadband didn't go through. You're like, yep, sure did. What did you do? Kept preaching through it. The light stopped flashing or whatever it did. I knew I wasn't live anymore, but I was 10 minutes into my 25-minute sermon, and those kind of things. But I agree with you. Like, we need to find someone who can walk alongside us and just be there with us. What you think?
Yeah, and sometimes that's as you were mentioning that, I was thinking, but the 70 hours that you described for a bivocational minister, I mean, that in and of itself is exhausting.
Yes.
Because you're constantly giving and you're constantly pouring into other people, which thankfully the Lord can be strong in our weakness. But we do need to refill and have that strength. And that certainly comes from our spiritual relationship with the Lord. But sometimes he uses people to be encouragers in our own life. That could be texting someone, just like you mentioned, texting them saying, hey, I'm having a hard day. That person might be able to text back in their 5-minute break somewhere and say, hey, man, I got you. I'm praying for you right now and just lifting you up. It doesn't have to be, an hour conversation. Sure. Certainly a phone call might be helpful too sometimes. And again, in the world that we're living in today, Zoom calls. So there's a variety of ways to connect. And that's a very important piece of being able to manage all of the stress.